Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Breakfast with Gene, where we're sitting down with the world-famous ultra geezer himself, Gene Dykes. Today, another special episode as we are joined by a very special guest and somebody who knows a little bit about Western States, or at least a little bit more than Gene and I combined. It's the Western States race director himself, Craig Thornley. Craig, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're very excited. So Craig's been doing this for a very long time in many different roles, has been running the race for a number of years. And if there's anybody to talk to about race logistics, race course conditions, Craig is our guy. Craig, how long have you been running the race as the race director?
This is my 11th race cycle. We were canceled due to COVID, so the 10th race, but the 11th race cycle.
Wow. And how did you find your way to Western States?
Well, I was living in Auburn Lake Trails, cool, California. Auburn Lake Trails is the 85-mile aid station now. And this was in 78. We moved there in 77 from the San Francisco Bay Area. And my brother and I were camping on the trail. Had no idea that it was the same day as this run that was about to become bigger. The runner comes by and asks us where the aid station was, and we were about 2 miles from ALT, and we didn't know there was an aid station. We didn't know anything about it, and runners kept coming in throughout the night, and we realized we were witnessing something pretty special, and that was enough for us. My brother and I were hooked at that point. Like we gotta experience whatever they were experienced. The look in their eyes was just something we'd never seen before. And then we started working at an aid station. We worked at Dusty Corners for about 10 years.
Nice. Which
was really my first introduction to any kind of race production type of environment. And eventually my professional career was in computer science, wasn't in race directing. I created a race in Oregon, Waldo 100K, in 2002.
Okay. And
that kind of gave me an idea of what race directing was about. And my wife said, "Wow, you're pretty good at this. Maybe you could do this for a living." Like, nah. I went to school to study computer science, and eventually the job came open in 2012, and I thought, wow, I'll interview. Of course, my curriculum vitae for universities didn't apply at all, so I had to completely replan my resume, and they hired me, and here I am. And I had 8 finishes before I took this job, and I managed to run one time as race director in 2017.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I probably won't do that again.
Walkie-talkie on your chest the whole way?
No, it's pretty well delegated out. I don't need to be involved in most decisions on race day, but it was the weeks before. 2017 was a big snow year, very similar to this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it melted out in the last week. I mean, we lose a foot a day sometimes in that last week. So the conditions 2 weeks before were very different than the conditions on weekdays. So the last 2 weeks were just crazy amount of work, and I didn't spend enough time thinking about my own race. I was trying to be the race director.
I can appreciate that. So you mentioned the look in the runner's eye was what intrigued you initially. What was that look? Terror, fatigue, regret?
It was
excitement.
We had never seen, right? It's like they desperately wanted the aid station. They'd obviously been through a whole lot. There was this. It was. I like to say now. At the time, I didn't think of it. It was juxtaposition of human exhaustion and human achievement. Mm-hmm. It was just this look that I had never seen before. Now I've seen it many times. But
I'm going to have to add some new required race gear. I'm going to have to take a mirror with me so I can see this crazed look in my eyes.
Exactly.
Mile 85 or so.
Exactly. Bring some hair gel and just mad scientist and all the rest of it.
I didn't notice their hairdo. I didn't notice that.
But probably under their Montreal running cap at that point, right?
And I didn't notice any missing teeth.
Oh, well, Gene will have an excuse.
There you go, Gene.
Hey, have you guys ever met before?
I don't think so.
I saw you at Javelina. I saw you finish,
Oh, okay.
but I don't think we have officially met.
The one last year?
Yeah, the one you
Yeah,
just did for your qualifier. Yeah.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
was very surprised to hear that you volunteered to be race director. I thought for sure they blackmailed you or kidnapped your wife or something.
No,
It's amazing.
I wanted to do it. I actually thought I'd be on the board of directors before I'd be the race director, but the race director job came open, and Tim Tweetmeyer, who's on the board for a long time, 25
Mhm.
time finisher, he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about applying for race director job?" Not really. I live in Oregon. My wife has a job. I have a job. So it was a good challenge, and a lot of the things that I had done in my extracurricular, I was ski patroller. I did trail work. Um, I did Waldo. All those things kind of accidentally made me qualified to do this job, and my connection to the race. Parents living in Auburn Lake Trails, had run the race 8 times.
Oprah money. Oprah money. Run the race. Be the race director. Make it rain.
Well, it was a huge cut because there were no benefits at the time. It's definitely a lot better now.
Mhm.
The salary is better, but it was a huge cut.
Yeah. Well, we do this out of love, right?
Yeah, this is not about making money here. No.
No. There's a lot of professional trail racers out there, right? Who their van is their home. So we definitely love it. All right, so you guys haven't met before, but we do all share a love of oatmeal. Gene, what are you eating today?
Oh, I've got a bowl here of bucking A. Bucking A, and it's just perfect for when you're missing a tooth. It's nice and soft and
Nice. We gotta start pitching to nursing homes then. Missing
yeah.
that sector.
I'm not quite sure that was the demographic you were reaching for, but it would work.
Hey, we are not about exclusion. We are inclusive. Craig, how about you?
I'm eating Stone Age oats
Nice.
with brown sugar. I got a
Ah,
little bit of brown sugar. Yeah.
well, there is no added sugar in that one to start. And I'm eating some of our granola today. So awesome. Well, gents, let's continue on here. I'm sure Gene's got a lot of burning questions about the race course itself. We had Mike on at the last podcast, Mike Wardian. Craig, you obviously know who Mike is. I think everybody who owns a pair of running shoes in North America knows who Mike is, but he's done your race many times now. He gave Gene some great tips. And Craig, if you had to pick your top 3 tips for a new Western States racer, what would they be?
Well, the first thing, that you're not a brand new 100-miler, so maybe this isn't as applicable to you, but you got to have your mind set at the beginning that you're going all the way to Auburn. There nothing else in your mind. Nothing should even come up in your mind. And you want all your crew to be like that too. You don't want anybody on your crew to say, "Oh, you're really suffering here. Maybe it'd be better to quit." But your experience, maybe that's not as applicable to you. But the mind is so powerful. The first time I ran Western State, I was a fairly good runner. I was in my 30s, and I had already run a 100-miler too. And I got on the climb to Devil's Thumb, and I couldn't believe how hard that climb was. It was hot. I was dizzy, and I thought, "Oh my God, I'm going to have to drop out at Devil's Thumb." And I got up there, had some popsicles, and the aid station folks didn't even hint that dropping out was an option.
Right.
And I went on, and I ran 20 hours. So which is just, I don't know, the mental part is so powerful. For this year, I think being familiar with running on snow is important. We're going to have snow on the course. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be like. If it gets really hot before the race and the night of the race doesn't get below freezing, it could be really soft, or it could freeze and become really hard, and which is fast. It's super fast if it's hard snow. But being familiar with running on snow I ran a couple years that were big snow years. 2011 was big. 2010 was fairly big. And you could see some of the elite runners who had never been on snow. They didn't even know how snow melts, and that's why it gets slippery. It's your friction that makes it slick. If they had some experience with snow, even skiing, I think it would make a big difference on just how they run. And then the last one, I guess, probably for a back of the packer, which I assume you're going to be in the 28 or 29 hours. Don't waste time in the aid stations. It's important to get the ice, because the ice will really help keep it cool. If we didn't have the ice on the aid station, our finish rate would be significantly lower. So practice with putting ice in your sleeves, and if you use a buff neck gaiter, practice cooling techniques that utilize ice. Even the aid stations that don't have your crew in there, our volunteers are so used to and experienced with helping people put ice in whatever vessels they have. So those are three.
I love aid stations. So yeah, that's I'm gonna have to count on my crew to get me in and out of there quickly before I settle in and start schmoozing with the volunteers and carefully choosing snacks. So yeah, I've got that in my mind of things I've got to up my game on is getting through aid stations. I will say that the one thing that terrifies me about this race is the first cutoff. For some reason, I read about a snow year where a lot of people didn't make the first cutoff, who said they wouldn't have had any trouble, but they just couldn't make the first cutoff. And going uphill and slogging through snow aren't my forte. So yeah, I have to say I'm worried about that. Any chance you can make the cutoff for the first stage a little longer if conditions?
I assume you're referring to 2017.
Maybe.
Yeah, we had, I think, 15 people miss the cutoff at Red Star. That was the year where it melted so much at the 2 weeks right before the race. In fact, mostly the last week before the race. And it was after we had acquired land. Well, American River Conservancy had acquired land up there, private land. It used to be timber company. And they took out all the roads and the culverts, and the trail was gone right before the snows fell in 2016, 2017. We hadn't even seen the ground until the snow melted the race, the days before the race, and there was no trail. And because they had bulldozed and they had taken all the culverts out in the roads, it was very muddy. And it won't be like that this year because the trail is established. That was an exceptionally hard high country year. I won't say that it's out of the question that we could extend the cutoffs early, but we don't want to take people out at Red Star. We don't want to take people out that early. That's not the reason that we have cutoffs. At least we want you to get a lot of hours experiencing Western states, but we also have to respect the volunteers' time. But don't dilly dally up there, and get going.
Well, as you said, I'm not a newbie to 100s. Actually, I did my first one when I was 62 or so. My first Western States qualifier when I was 2014. And this will be my 19th 100, along with 5 200s. And I don't know if you're interested or my pained road to Western States was that I have qualified either for the lottery once or twice every year since 2014 and haven't gotten in because one year I forgot to enter the lottery. And my ticket count went back to 0. So I'm really grateful to Stoked Oats for getting me in this race before I'd likely have been maybe 78 before I got in, I think. So yeah, this is a real treat for me to do it this year.
Yeah,
gonna
and
be
it's
awesome.
going to be a year to remember with all the variables that we're about to talk about. Some of the other variables.
Yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about those variables. Mother Nature has had a lot of fun in the Sierras over the past year, and blessed you with abundant snows to help rebuild some severely depleted aquifers, but also decided that your forests need a little bit of a haircut and burned down front side of your race course last year. What's it all looking like? What are your thoughts?
Well, the mosquito fire burned about 16 miles of our course last September, and coming out of that fire, when the fire stopped, that was the biggest hurt. That was the biggest challenge that was facing us.
Mhm.
And we aggressively worked with the Forest Service and the state parks to make sure that the trail would be ready for race day, and that involved us driving projects that required money on our part. We're spending upwards of $200,000 with Forest Service and Sierra Butte Trail
Really?
Stewards. Yeah. If you just ask the Forest Service, hey, when is the trail going to be ready? Of course, they're not going to tell you it's going to be next year, right? And there's plenty of examples of races where their courses were burned and then they're not back on the trail for 4 or 5 years. And we didn't take that approach. We immediately said, what do we need to do to get the trail ready? And fortunately, we have great partners in Forest Service and the state.
Was that a lot of chainsawing?
A lot of chainsawing, yeah. A lot of hazard trees had to be felled, and they're still in there right now. Forest Service and Sierra Butte Trail Stewards doing tread repair. We just posted something on Facebook about the progress that's been made.
Awesome.
So that was looking like that was going to be the hardest challenge for us. And then it snows like crazy and it rains like crazy in December and January. We got 33 inches in 6 weeks in Forest Hill of precipitation. On top of a burn scar is not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And now the snowpack just continues to grow. And because of these storms, we lost Mosquito Ridge Road, which is how we get to the south side aid stations, Duncan
Right.
Canyon, Dusty Corners, Last Chance.
Interesting.
So that's probably going to affect crew access. It may affect some of our aid station access. We're still working through those. We don't want to make decisions too early because it's possible that we'll be able to use the road, or the road will get repaired enough so that we can get an exemption. But yeah, now the snowpack, while it's not, runners can run on snow. It's not at all, runners can't, unlike the horses don't go on snow. They avoid it. If they break through a snow bridge on, 1,500-pound animal, it's pretty dangerous. But runners, we can go over the snow, but it's getting into the aid stations. It's aid station access for us, both ingress and egress. And there were several years in the 80s and the 90s where we used helicopters to bring the supplies in, and we've already contacted helicopter company to bring in supplies to Lion Ridge and Red Star, so we can be on the ridge tops.
Mm-hmm.
But those are challenges for us, and hopefully there won't be that big impact on the runners. But the two upper aid stations, they can hold the snow all the way. Sometimes it melts off the week of the race where we can finally drive in. So lots of unknowns, lots of variables that are still unknown. But you don't have to worry about those, Gene. We're worrying about most of those. Those are our problems. So, and we'll update you probably next week. I'll send out an email to you guys, to the runners.
Okay. It's amazing and so impressive, that you've got the resources to be able to move things and bend it to your will, so to speak, which is a tall order, over 100 miles of trail. And B, that, there's just the experience and, the team in place that knows what to do, how to handle virtually every eventuality on this. It's a luxury that you have that most races don't. So it's absolutely amazing the amount of work that will go on behind the scenes before he steps on course.
And we're very aware of people like in Gene's situation where they've taken many years to get into the race. So we're going to do everything we can to provide a course that is worthy of their spot, their one time in Western states. So we're not looking for an easy way out. We're not going to run along the reservoir on the dirt road unless we absolutely have to. We're going to do everything we can to run along those ridge tops, which is just going to be absolutely incredible. It is so beautiful. In 2017, we ran along the ridge tops on the normal course, and that was the year I ran as race director. And I was telling everybody, I was just talking, and of course, no one was listening to me, but I was just talking. Isn't this great? We're not down there. We're up on the ridge tops. We can see these views, and
that's awesome. Awesome. Well, I mean, those were really my questions. I had a lot of curiosity about the course and the logistics behind it. I know Gene's got some questions as well. Gene, as a prompt, you had mentioned something about the golden tickets and your thoughts on that.
Well, I originally thought up the idea when I was interested in trying to be the oldest ever finisher. But then I looked and said, well, yeah, I could be the oldest ever finisher if I can get into the race, because, 40-year-old, 30-year-old, they can wait as long as possible to get into the race. But when you're, say, 70 years old, you can't wait 7 or 8 years, to get into the race. I said, gee, it would be really exciting if there were a ticket for the older people, because a lot of people are taking up the sport later in life, and having them, qualify 7 or 8 years in a row is kind of tough. I thought it would be exciting to have one race designated somewhere where, some of these age groupers who couldn't possibly win a golden ticket, against the youngsters to get into the race. I thought it would be interesting for the race, interesting for publicity, and enhance any credentials you might want that you're encouraging older runners to do these 100-milers. I know you're probably deluged lots of times with, how about free entry for this reason and free entry for that reason, and there's so few entries, and my idea of taking 6 more off the table might sound greedy, but well, anyway, it's my good idea.
Well, we do get requests, but you're the first one today. They actually don't come that often, but we are sensitive to the predicament, I guess, that older runners are in. We relaxed the consecutive year requirement, which I know is really hard to maintain your ticket counts, but that applies to everybody. One thing that we do have is the Silver Legend Award that goes to, there's one spot each year that goes to a 60-year-old or 60 or older runner who's made significant contributions to the sport of ultra running in general, or Western states specifically. And we don't have that with any other age group. We have considered a golden ticket for age groupers, but it's, we don't even know if you had one male and one female spot, who would it go to? A 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 70-year-old, the oldest person to finish? Unless we had a spot for each age group, which is, I guess, what you're suggesting.
Yeah, either 50, starting at either 50 or 60. I mean, if you have 50-year-old people who have won a golden ticket, then yeah, you could exclude them. But I doubt if any 60 or 70-year-olds are ever going to win one of the normal golden tickets.
Are there any federal retirement guidelines? Hey, is it Freedom 65 and you're in golden ticket territory?
Yeah, I'm going to launch an age discrimination lawsuit.
There you go, against worldwide racing.
Yeah, obviously the spots are very coveted, and we often get suggestions from people who think that they're more deserving of a spot than others, and I definitely I feel for the older runners more than let's say a 40-something-year-old who thinks that because they do something for a living or whatever their reason is that they deserve a spot.
That'd be tough.
59-year-old now, and I know my body is not the same as it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. To try to run a qualifier every year is really, really hard. It's daunting. I can't see myself doing what you're doing, Gene, in 16 years. So
Mhm.
I feel if you're fit, you want to get in the race. I totally feel for that. And maybe when you're here before the race, we can sit down and chat with a couple other board members, and we can brainstorm. I don't know if we would be able to do 6 spots. That's quite a few to take away from others, but yeah, let's brainstorm when we're together.
Possibly 4. And don't forget, probably no female 70 is going to make it in a normal year, I would think.
Yeah. Gunhild was a special runner.
Mhm.
We ran 20.
But just think, that was one of the big moments in Western States, was seeing her finish. And there might be other people there, but they just can't get in the right time frame for something like that to happen.
Yep.
Well, it's an interesting thought. And, I mean, that's the beauty of having a diverse sport, right? Where nearly any age, if the fitness is there and a few miles under the belt is fair game, male, female, or otherwise. And that's why I love it.
I don't know if you know, Gene, but Gunhild got in on a sponsor spot that year she ran. She was the final finish. She got in.
Really?
Yeah, Microlumen. Yeah. So
okay.
Sometimes I have sponsors ask me. It's rare, but it happens where they say, "I don't have a runner. Do you have a suggested runner?" And I suggested Gunhild that year, and we do have that luxury that someone like Stoked Oats can put you in the race. So that is an option for older folks, and the brands that sponsor us.
Very cool. What else you got, Gene?
Well, I already jumped the gun on some of them, telling them about my history and worrying about that first cutoff. I'm just guessing here, but I'm guessing you also get comments now and then about some of the qualifying times. I mean, I'm not griping here. I'm just, noticing that, I've run Rocky Raccoon twice under 24 hours, beating the cutoff by 6 hours. But then I've done some other races, Tarawera, Bigfoot. I couldn't touch those cutoffs with a 10-foot pole. I was wondering why, they made. Is it intentional that some, or it's just that, or maybe certain runners like me might find courses harder than others? But some courses seem to be really tough qualifiers, and some seem to be easy. I was wondering if that's planned or not.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much variability. The cutoff times, like Miwok has a 15:30 absolute cutoff. That's pretty hard. If you're a 18, 17-hour runner for 100K, it's going to be hard to qualify there. So there's definitely variability just in the individual races and how hard they are. But our general approach is 100 milers, as long as they're on a trail, that to us is proof enough that you can run 100 miles. The 100K distance being shorter than 100 miles, we tried to put that. We're now looking at double the winner's time as the cutoff. We used to roughly try to put it at about 80%. So it's harder to get in at 100K than it is 100 miler. That's just been our philosophy. So if you went to Tarawera 100K, yeah, it's going to be harder for someone like you who's run 17 or 1800 milers.
No, that was the Tarawera 100 that I did. It had a race cutoff of 34 hours.
Oh.
And but then I was surprised to find that I had to do it under 30 hours to get a Western States qualifier, and that was tough. I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, the in general the 100-mile qualifying times are the cutoff times of the race.
Not Tarawera. And 200-miler Bigfoot, you cut 10 or something hours off the cutoff for that one.
Well, the
200, you don't know much about 200, so I suppose you were just guessing. But
the 200,
I can finish Bigfoot, but I can't finish it under 96 hours.
Yeah, the 200s are hard for us. Is you can't walk Western States and get in under 30 hours. You just can't, unless you don't need aid stations, and you can walk 18-minute pace up and down hills in the heat without aid station. So we've had a hard time. We just recently added those. I think 3 years ago we started adding the 200 milers, and yeah, we're still trying to figure out what's the right kind of time. We asked Candace Burt what she thought for each of the races, and that's what we started with, and still be adjusting them. But it's hard for us to, so you can walk 200 miles. Does that mean you can run Western States? I don't know.
Oh, it's interesting. Hey guys, I think we are nearing our time cutoff here. I'm going to have to wrap it up. So just wanted to say thank you both. This has been a terrific conversation. I've learned a lot about what's going on behind the scenes, Craig, and appreciate the insight on the challenges that you and your team are facing in terms of preparing this year's race course to be exceptional as always. And Gene, great questions. Again, having somebody in your age bracket looking at the race as, I mean, for me, what I'm stoked about is like, it's still aspirational, right? Like what Craig was saying, hey, I'm 59. I don't know if I'll be able to do what you're doing in 10, 15 years if the body's going to hold up. It changes year over year. I mean, you're there, you're doing it, you're still hungry for more. I think, like, for me, that's the big takeaway. And that's where I find some personal inspiration and hope that, even though life throws plenty at us, you can still stay hungry for these things. And if you stay fit and keep that level high enough, it can be going after it for many, many years to come. And I think, on the whole science and longevity side of things, that is where we are moving as a population in North America overall. So it's an interesting subject to think about, and I'm really happy that I'm just kind of a fly on the wall to hear your thoughts and be part of these conversations. So awesome meetup, guys. Thanks so much, Craig. Can't wait to see you in June. Gene, likewise, and we will be talking soon.
All right.
Look forward to having you here, Gene.
Hey, great meeting you.
Be great. Yeah.